Bone-chilling secrets, the insane sexual rituals of Viking raiders revealed at midnight, in the shadow of the ancient fjords, where the ocean's roar meets the whisper of the wind, a secret lurks. It's not just the echoes of horned helmets or the clash of swords. No, this is something darker, something that gnaws at the edges of sanity. Rumors drift like smoke through the villages that Viking raiders, those notorious pillagers, partook in rituals so strange and perverse that they've been buried by time and fear. What were these ceremonies? Who were the figures cloaked in the night, chanting in a tongue forgotten by all but the most twisted of souls? A flicker of torchlight illuminated a hidden cave, the heart of this terrifying mystery. Legend has it that on stormy nights, figures draped in animal skins would gather to summon the spirits of their ancestors. They believed these spirits would grant them strength in battle, but at a grave price. Each ritual ended with a dark offering, a blood pact sealed in the most intimate way. The whispers of these acts stained the very air, creating a palpable tension as if the walls themselves could shudder at the stories told by trembling lips. Then there were the rumors of the missing lovers who vanished without a trace. And the eerie murmurs in the village, they wanted to be chosen. A hollowness filled the hearts of the people as they turned their eyes skyward, hoping the storm would take them instead. Pacts forged in lust and blood, as the elders would hiss, could never be unbroken. The thought alone could make the bravest soul tremble. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But the chilling enigma did not end with the rituals. In the heart of the village, a single black raven perched silently, its beady eyes absorbing every secret. Elder Marin claimed the raven carried the souls of those who perished at the hands of the raiders, guarding their restless spirits. At dusk, villagers would watch warily as it circled above, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on them with every flap of its wings. What did it see? What did it know? And then, one fateful night, under a veil of thick fog, a scream shattered the silence, a voice once familiar, now lost. What terror awaited just beyond the firelight? The villagers glanced at one another, grappling with the chilling fear that their ancestors' wrath would soon return to haunt them. Little did they know, the past was not done with them yet. The fog hung heavy in the air like a shroud, wrapping around the villagers as they stood frozen, fear coiling tight in their chests. The echo of that scream lingered, reverberating through the silence like a sinister whisper. Faces paled, breaths quickened, eyes darted toward the shadows. What had shattered the calm? Who had been taken this time? Marin, the oldest among them, gripped her staff as if it could shield her from whatever horrors crouched in the darkness. We must not falter, she croaked, her voice trembling but resolute. Yet the shaky hands of her neighbors told a different story, an unspoken terror rooted deep in their bones, one they could no longer ignore. Across the square, Tyr, a young warrior with a heart full of courage but eyes dimmed by doubt, took a step forward. I'll go find out what happened, he declared, trying to infuse bravery into his wavering tone. A hush fell over the crowd. They cannot take any more of us. Shouting additional curses toward the night, a few villagers rallied around Tyr, emboldened by shared dread. They moved cautiously, stepping into the murky depths where the fog swallowed them whole. A collective shudder coursed through the group as they looked back at the flickering torches, their last remnants of safety dimming in the mist. As they made their way down a narrow, twisting path, the air grew colder. Each breath felt like a chilling gust, carrying the weight of the village's collective fear. Shadows danced among the trees, and every rustle felt like an omen. Tyr led the way, heart pounding like a war drum. Stay close. He barked, though his own voice betrayed him with a tremor. Then, out of the gloom, a familiar figure emerged, stumbling and breathless. It was Alva, the fearless woman who had once cut down a man thrice her size. She looked wild, hair disheveled, eyes wide with terror. "They're returning," she gasped, clutching her arms, shivers running through her. "The raiders' spirits, they've risen. I saw them." A collective gasp echoed back, uncertainty twisting every heart. Tyr felt a chill creep up his spine. "What do you mean?" he pressed, urgency filling every word. "What did you see?" But Alva only shook her head, terror brewing in her gaze. "Tonight, there was chanting. I climbed the cliff and peered down. They were performing a ritual," and then her voice faltered, the weight of her memory nearly suffocating. The group leaned in closer, desperate for clarity, yet the night felt heavy with unspoken truths. "I heard names called. Familiar names," she whispered, trembling. "They were summoning us, summoning our souls." Marin's breath hitched. "We must gather the village. There may still be time." But before the words could leave her mouth, a howl erupted from the depths of the forest, chilling enough to put frost in their veins. No one moved, frozen in the grip of dread as the howling grew louder and more insistent, coming closer with each heartbeat, and then from the shadows, something emerged. Tall, spectral figures wrapped in mist and fury, eyes glow like embers against the inky night. The villagers gasped, fear washing over them like a tidal wave. Tyr gripped his sword tighter. "Stand together," he commanded, yet in that moment, they all questioned whether this was truly a fight worth standing for. The questions hung heavy in the air, echoing the hearts of the terrified villagers. What price would they pay? And as the ghostly figures advanced, what unholy bargain had been struck in the dark? The night was far from over, and the answers loomed dangerously close. The spectral figures closed in, their hollow forms flickering like dying embers in the fog. A sense of dread washed over the villagers, thick and cloying as the cold air. Tyr stood at the front, sword drawn, but doubt gnawed at his resolve. Each breath felt heavier, each heartbeat echoed louder. "Back!" Tyr shouted, voice cracking in the oppressive darkness. The villagers behind him stumbled back. Marin raised her staff, trying to steady her shaking hands. "Think!" she shouted, trying to rally the group. "We can't fight spirits with swords." But Tyr couldn't think. All he saw were the glowing eyes advancing toward them, hungry and filled with an ancient fury. They were the lost souls of their own, the faces of those taken too soon. Alva's voice cut through the air, a whisper barely audible and frantic. "We need to dispel their anger, remember who we are. We must call their names." "Call their names?" Tyr asked, fear tightening his throat. "What good will that do? If we acknowledge them, we may find a way to fight back." Alva insisted, her eyes wide, filled with an earnest hope as shadows swirled around them. Suddenly, one of the figures lunged forward, its spectral hand reaching towards Marin. She gasped, backing away, but found her feet stuck in fear. "No!" Tyr roared, stepping between them, the blade trembling in his grasp. "Names!" Alva urged, her voice rising above the howl of the wind. "Who are they? What were their lives?" Marin muttered the names of the fallen, his brother Eirik, her lost daughter Livia, each name a thread woven into the village's tapestry of grief. The villagers began to murmur them too, voices trembling but uniting in shared sorrow. With every name, the spirits hesitated, flickering like fireflies in the deepening fog. The glowing eyes dimmed, flashes of recognition merging with their rage. Tyr felt a shift, something was unfolding, a connection sparking in the air. Suddenly, the lead spirit, one that radiated an unearthly chill, stepped forward. Its features took form, revealing the familiar face of Eirik, his features haunting yet somehow serene. "You have summoned me," it whispered, a voice both foreign and achingly familiar. "But your grief binds us." A new wave of dread crashed over Tyr. "What do you want from us?" He forced through clenched teeth, heart racing. The ghostly Eirik's gaze pierced right through him. "The bargain was struck long ago. A number must be paid to set us free." More souls. Marin shrieked, the shake of her staff breaking the tension. No. We will not lose another. Irik's expression softened, sadness colored by the rage that buzzed like electricity. Not just any souls, the debt must be repaid in blood, or in offerings from the living. The villagers recoiled as the gravity of his words settled in the air. The very air felt heavy with a sinister promise. What offerings? Tyr demanded, a flare of desperation igniting within him, spotlighted against the writhing shadows. But Irik merely shook his head, fading back into the fog, leaving behind only a lingering chill and unanswered questions. The spirits began to swirl, agitated, anger pulsing. We don't have time. Alva cried, urgency rising in her voice. We need to confront the darkness. We can't let it take us. Then the howling returned, echoing throughout the woods, more ferocious, more insistent. The villagers felt the ground tremble beneath their feet, their own fear mixing with palpable dread as the shadowy figures surged forward once more. Stand firm. Tyr shouted again, ready to fight against a force that felt overwhelmingly beyond human comprehension. But self-doubt gnawed at him. How could they ever stand against what they could scarcely understand? What choice lay ahead? Would they pay the unimaginable price, or drain all hope? The night thickened, and with it, the stakes raised like a banner in the dark. What true darkness awaited them as they faced the fury of the unshackled? And as the first cry erupted, echoing in the void, one question loomed: could they beat back the storm invading their souls before it was too late? The howling intensified, each wail stabbing through the air like a dagger. Tyr felt the chilling breath of the spirits as they surged forward, a tempest of rage unleashed upon the villagers. Panic gripped his throat, but he fought it back. He had to stand strong for the villagers, for himself. He took a deep breath and turned to face them. Gather close. He shouted, rallying those around him. We can't let them divide us. Marin stepped up beside him, staff clutched tightly. What do we do? Her voice wavered, doubt creeping back in as she looked at the spectral figures, shadows twisting into grotesque shapes. They want our fear, Tyr replied, heart hammering. That's their power. We have to confront it with our grief, with our memories. Alva, keep calling their names. We need to remember them. Alva nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. She raised her voice again, calling out the names of the lost. Irik. Livia. Old Tom. We remember you. Each name seemed to ripple through the fog, sending fresh waves of energy into the swirling darkness. As the spirits hesitated again, Tyr felt a flicker of hope. That's it. They are bound by our sorrow. We have to reach them. But then, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the warmth of their shared memories. Tyr saw the anger ignite in the spirit's eyes once more, pulsating like a heartbeat. A figure with long, tangled hair and hollow eyes stepped forward, moving with an unnatural grace, its aura darker, more consuming. You think you can bind us with your pitiful remembrances? It hissed, the voice scraping against Tyr's mind like nails on glass. Your grief is our shackles, but it is not enough to satisfy our hunger. He stumbled back 2 steps, the weight of despair crashing down over him. What else do you want? He shouted into the chaos, voice trembling. Feel your pain. The spirit roared, and suddenly the air hummed with suffering. Tyr saw flashes of their lives, families torn apart, laughter stolen by illness, joy crushed under the weight of tragedy. Each vision sliced through him, the rawness of loss clawing at his heart. Remember. Alva cried, but her voice faltered, overwhelmed. Remember the joy. Not just the sorrow. A tremor of realization coursed through Tyr. Yes. We will not just call their names. We will honor their lives. He turned to the villagers, urgency propelling him forward. Think of what they loved. The stories they told, the songs they sang. As if summoned by his words, the memories flowed back. Laughter burst forth, mingled with tears. They began to sing, hesitant notes at first, but as the melody wove itself through the air, the spirits halted, caught in the current of shared joy. With every note that rose, the phantoms drew nearer, captivated. Eirik, the once haunted face, flickered with something that looked like relief. But that relief was short-lived. The dark spirit seethed, its rage bubbling over. No! It screamed, a tempest of rage. You dare! Before it could finish, shadows coiled and lashed out, whipping across Tyr's face, burning like icy fire. He stumbled but stood firm, clenching his teeth against the pain. Stay strong! He bellowed, the villagers echoing his resolve, voices rising like a chorus against the storm. They pushed back against the swirling shadows, hearts pounding with defiance, but darkness was crafty. Beneath the song of remembrance, a seed of doubt tore at the edge of Tyr's resolve. What would happen if their offerings weren't enough? Would the spirits take more? Would they pay a blood price to appease this relentless hunger? Then came a deafening silence as Eirik stepped forward again, eyes perioding with a strange glow. Your music soothes us, but it will not put the darkness to rest. Tyr's heart sank. What could they offer to quell this fury? How long would their connection last before it broke? As hope slipped into uncertainty, the question loomed larger than the shadows surrounding them. What true price would they have to pay to find peace? The ground trembled beneath Tyr's feet as the air thickened with tension. Eirik's hollow gaze sent chills coursing through him. The once-loved spirit now looked more ghostly and tormented, trapped in an endless cycle of hunger and rage. Tyr swallowed hard, the taste of fear bitter on his tongue. What do you want from us? He demanded, his voice shaking but resolute. You have names, memories are not enough. The dark spirit screeched, taking a step forward. The wind howled, wrapping around Tyr like icy chains. You think you can save them with your silly songs and whispers? They seek more than mere nostalgia. Tyr's heart raced as the other villagers watched, wide-eyed and terrified. Their unity began to waver. He could see the doubt creeping back in, like shadows stalking through their hearts. Suddenly, an unexpected voice cut through the chaos. We want them back. Maren shouted, her voice rising above the storm, defiance lighting her features. Bring them back to us. The dark spirit recoiled, fury pouring like smoke from its twisted form. We are not playthings to be returned. It shrieked. We are trapped here, bound by their grief and your denial. Tyr felt the weight of Maren's south words click into place. Denial. The villagers had buried their pain deep but refused to acknowledge its weight. You're right. He exclaimed, stepping forward, trembling yet determined. We've hidden from our loss. We've shunned our traumas, but we cannot do that anymore. Glimmers of understanding sparked among the villagers' faces. Alva's voice joined his, steady and clear. We must embrace our pain. Not alone, but together. As their words collided with the howling winds, the spirits hesitated, trapped in a moment of susceptibility. Their rage clashed with curiosity. The shadows writhed, twisting in on themselves. All this sorrow, it can be unbearable, Tyr continued, nervousness gnawing at his gut. But we can't pretend it doesn't exist. We must honor our pain to honor them. We can share it with each other. He turned to the villagers, tears glistening in his eyes. Let us not forget the fissures in our hearts, the scars born from their absence. We can shine a light into this darkness together. We can let them feel our love. Hold on to it. With that, one by one, they began to share their memories, ugly and beautiful in equal measure. Laughter bubbled up like barely contained rage, and grief poured forth like an endless tide. Voices intermingled, from sorrowful to jubilant. It was raw, painful, and yet it sang with a sort of bittersweet beauty. The dark spirit screamed, even louder now. Silence. You cannot bind us with your weak offerings. But the villagers' chorus rose above the tumult, transcending fear. It filled the air, wrapping around even Irik's tortured form. Tyr could almost feel the haunting cries morph, shifting from anger to yearning. They were watching, listening, captivated by the rhythm of shared experience. What if Maren breathed, as realization struck them all, what if we offer a piece of ourselves? A better memory, a tender moment, something to feed them with love instead of fear? Before any of them could respond, the darkness surged again, as if sensing their plan. Shadowy tendrils reached out, hungry and desperate. You play with fire, mortals. You will burn. The ground shattered beneath them as the spirits surged forward, a swirling maelstrom ripping through the clearing. Tyr's heart raced as he held on to hope. Could love truly outweigh this darkness? Stand firm. He screamed, gripping Marin's hand and pulling her back against the wind. Whatever happens, we do this together. As the darkness approached, something bright flickered in the chaos, the glimmer of their defiance. But even as he sensed its power, he felt a deep pulse of dread. Would their unity be enough to stave off this onslaught? And if they succeeded, what would be left in the wake of this battle? Just as their harmonies began to swell once more, Tyr realized the storm was about to break wide open. The swirling darkness collided with their voices, a cacophony of sound and fury. A sudden gust tore through the clearing, scattering the villagers like leaves in a storm. Tyr stumbled, his grip on Maren slipping as he was pulled back, the force of their fears intertwining with the vengeful wails of the spirits. Stay together. He shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. The bonds forged through shared grief felt fragile, like glass on the verge of shattering. Marin's eyes were wide, fear mixing with determination. We can't let go. She cried, desperately stretching her hand back toward Tyr. Their connection sparked bright against the darkness as they struggled to find their footing amidst the chaos. The shadows surged, a living entity consumed by rage. Tyr could see faces, twisted remnants of the lost flashing through the instability. He didn't recognize some of them, but others were familiar. Loved ones, friends, souls that had once thrived in the light of camaraderie. Please. Tyr called, his voice breaking. We're not your enemies. We remember you. We celebrate you. The spirit surges halted abruptly, the howling wind quieting momentarily. It hovered, as if to ponder his words, but the quiet was a mere illusion. Moments later, the tendrils twisted violently, recoiling with discordant cries. The anguish was palpable, wrapping itself around the villagers, squeezing the air from their chests. Suddenly, shadows shot forward, encapsulating Tyr in an icy grip. Panic surged through him. He could feel the cold creeping into his very bones. What is it you want? He yelled, struggling against the invisible fetters. Memories, yes. But not the ones you think. The voice hissed back, echoing with 1,000 cries of grief. You offer bland words, but we require much more. Your love cannot fill our hunger, but flesh can. Tyr's eyes widened. Fear prickled at his skin. The villagers gasped, glancing at each other, dread weaving into their hearts. Suddenly, Irik's spirit whispered behind them, the sound raspy as dry leaves skittering on the ground. They want sacrifices, from you. Blood surged in Tyr's ears. Sacrifices. He glanced at Maren, realizing a truth that paralyzed him. They would take that which they had fought to unite in love. His heart beat erratically, pounding against the walls of his conviction. Determined, Maren raised her voice. We will not be pawns in your game. She screamed, anger igniting her fading hope. Foolish mortals, the spirit growled back, venom lacing its tone. You see only what you wish. Sacrifice binds love far more than simple echoes of joy. As shadows closed in once more, emotions twisted into a tumultuous whirlpool. Tyr could feel despair creeping back in, threatening to consume their hard-won unity. But right then, a flicker of light blazed amidst the swirling darkness, an ember of collective resolve ignited by Marin's defiance. Together, we find strength in love, not loss. Tyr yelled, finding courage within. They began chanting an ancient melody, one passed down through generations, resonating deep within their bones. The rhythm built, wrapping around them, stronger than shadows. They sang for the lost, invoking the joy of memories, the laughter, the shared smiles, the moments that made life sweet. The darkness faltered. The tendrils flickered, distorting wildly before retracting. But just as they surged forward, a new sound cut through, a low rumble, stirring just beneath their feet, a warning echo of fomenting rage. Your song cannot save you forever, mortals, the dark spirit spat, its anger palpitating through the very ground they stood on. But it can light the way for your doom. Tyr's heart clenched. Was their song enough to hold back the tide? Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a more grotesque form, and Tyr realized their fight was only beginning. An overwhelming pulse swept through the darkness, shifting into something far more sinister. What were they unleashing, and at what cost? Tyr's stomach twisted as they summoned the remnants of their sacrifices. Desperation clawed at him. What more would the darkness demand? Would their unity become their greatest weakness? The ground trembled, a low growl echoing in the air as the darkness writhed around them. Tyr felt the weight of dread settle on his chest, heavy and suffocating. His heart pounded. Could their cries really silence such a wrath? Maren tightened her grip, her eyes fierce. We have to hold on, she urged, but doubt flickered in her voice, feeding on the shadows that clung to them. The groaning of the earth grew louder. The air felt electric, charged with the fear of what was to come. Tyr could see the spectral figures shifting and swaying, a dance of malice and sorrow. Among the chaos, he spotted Eirik's ghost, his expression twisted in anguish. Together. Tyr called again, desperately rallying the villagers. Don't let them tear us apart. The group had formed a ragged circle, clinging to each other with all their might. The melody they summoned echoed in the night, but it barely seemed to reach the ear of the looming shadows. The darkness swirled and twisted, forming jagged, claw-like shapes that grasped at the edges of their light, hungry for more than just emotion. One of you must pay. The voice hissed through gritted teeth. The shadows coiled tightly, as if an unseen force pressed against each villager. Your love is a fragile bond. A sacrifice will bind your lives to ours. Tyr looked into the eyes of his companions, each filled with a mix of fear and defiance. This darkness, this spirit was trying to tear them apart from within. He sensed the struggle growing, the soft crack of vulnerability spreading like a fissure among them. Maren spoke, her voice ringing with desperation. What if we gave you something else? A promise, a vow. Empty words. The spirit cried, laughter bitter and cruel. Show me blood. Show me your willingness to lose everything. A chill seeped into Tyr's spine. The shadows morphed, and a vision flashed through the darkness, a sickening tableau of betrayal where family members turned against each other. Tyr gritted his teeth, determined that he wouldn't let it happen. Stop! He yelled, a surge of fury igniting in his gut. We won't play your games. Our bonds are forged in love, and that is something you can't take. With every ounce of strength, he drew in the warmth of the memories the dinners shared, laughter echoing in the night sky, the soothing touch of belonging. He could feel it building, a tidal wave of defiance battled against the cold fear. Stronger now, they chanted again, but this time, they wove their pledges of unity into the song. Each name of the lost added strength, holding it high against the onslaught. Tyr could see the shadows flicker, uncertain, alive with rage and confusion. Foolish mortals! The spirit shrieked, but this time there was a tremor in its voice. Suddenly, an even angrier roar erupted from the depths of the shadows, and the ground shook violently. A fracture began to split the earth beneath them, dark and swirling. Tyr's heart raced. What were they losing control of now? Don't let go. Stand firm. Maren shouted above the chaos, her voice slicing through the screams. Tyr felt the heat of her determination merge with his. The darkness quivered again, revealing an even deeper well of rage. Then, with a sudden thrust, the shadows lunged forward, their fingers wretched and greedy. A wind swirled around them, threatening to rip them apart. Tyr braced himself, eyes wide with uncertainty. What unspeakable horror awaited them, lurking just out of reach? Would they be able to hold on long enough to discover the truth? Or would their bonds unravel under the weight of darkness? The cacophony of their defense mixed with the growing tumult, and for a moment, it all felt like a terrifying dream, one they might never awaken from. As the ground continued to tremble, shadows poised for an ultimate strike, Tyr knew something had to change. But what would the next sacrifice be? The shadows surged, a black wave crashing against their fragile circle. Tyr felt the winds whip around him, laced with bitter laughter that clawed at the edges of his sanity. He could see the faces of the villagers twisted in fear and despair, their eyes reflecting the flickering light that stuttered against the encroaching darkness. "Hold fast!" He shouted again, his voice breaking through the cacophony, but doubt gnawed at him. Each thrum of the earth reverberated like a heartbeat, thrumming a slow, ominous rhythm that echoed the pounding in his chest. He couldn't let it take them, not now. Maren lifted her chin defiantly, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "Tyr, remember the story of the first villagers. They defeated this spirit with unity. They made a choice. We need to make a choice too. Do you really believe that will work?" Tyr shot back, laced with urgency. The thought of choosing one among them felt like a knife slicing through his heart. "It's just a story, Tyr." She snapped, but he could see the fear bubbling beneath her brave facade. "It may be our only chance." While they argued, the darkness slithered closer, stretching fingers toward Maren, beckoning her forward with deceptive warmth. Tyr's heart raced. Then a sharp scream, that shrieking single note pierced the air. It shattered the moment, ringing with agony. He turned to see one of the villagers, a woman named Aisling, battling against the tendrils of shadows that curled around her arms and legs. Her face twisted in torment, lost between fear and submission. Without thinking, Tyr lunged toward her, propelled by instinct. "Aisling! Fight it!" But the tendrils tightened their grip, pulling her closer to the darkness that writhed like a living beast. She struggled, her eyes wide and filled with terror, and just for a second, Tyr saw something deeper than fear, resignation. "No!" he roared, gathering his strength. He could not let this happen. He felt the power of their combined memories seep into him, a warmth igniting his resolve. In a bold move, he stepped across the line they deformed, reaching for Aisling. "We won't let you suffer," he cried, grasping her wrist with fierce determination. The shadows recoiled like wounded animals, hissing in protest. "Help me!" Aisling gasped, her voice thick with pain. With a desperate chant, the villagers echoed Tyr's plea. "Together! We are stronger together!" Their voices uniting like a single pulse of life, rippling through the air, the shadows writhed, their sounds turning from threatening whispers to a chaotic shriek. The wind howled, whipping like a storm, pushing against them, pulling at their very souls. Tyr felt the darkness wrestle against him, but Aisling's eyes met his, full of fear yet glimmering with fight. "Do not let go," she begged, and Tyr tightened his grip even more. Around them, the spirits howled. Tyr could see their faces twist in rage as the strength of their bonds pierced the air like a blade. "Sacrifice will bind your lives to ours." The spirit hissed again, frantic now. Suddenly, the ground beneath them split wide open, a dark chasm yawning with an insatiable hunger. The air grew thick and suffocating, a tangible fear blanketing them. Tyr felt the weight of the world crashing down, but deep inside, a flicker sparked. "We have something more powerful than sacrifice," he shouted, his voice thunderous against the storm. "We have love. Love that will not yield to darkness." Marin's eyes caught his, igniting with the same flame of rebellion. She stepped forward, moving into the fracture, defiance etched in her features. "We choose each other. We choose community." The shadows recoiled again, as if the very word sparked a light within their inky depths. Tyr's heart raced. What if it really was the key? But the spirit howled louder, its fury shaking the earth. An aura of panic seeped into the villagers. One flicker of doubt, and it could all unravel. The tension cracked like lightning through the air. Will they find the strength to carry their message of love against the storm? Or would darkness consume them in the final sacrifice? The answer lay just beyond reach, swirling in the chaos that engulfed them. One thing was certain, they were on the brink of revealing something monumental, something that could either save them or shatter their world altogether. What lie awaited deep in the shadows? The earth trembled violently beneath them, shaking the very foundation of their resolve. As Tyr held tightly to Aisling, his heart felt like it might burst, both from the pressure of the moment and the hope flickering to life around him. The shadows churned, angry and restless, like a wild beast flailing against its bindings. "Stand together!" he yelled, letting the fire in him fuel his words. "We are not alone. Together, we can drive this darkness back." Echoes of his plea swept through the crowd like a rising tide. The villagers' eyes locked onto one another, pooling their collective determination. Fear was palpable, thick as fog, but a knot of bravery began to intertwine. Aisling, despite the shadows still grasping at her limbs, gave a nod, a single spark of fight lighting up her eyes. "We can do this," she breathed, her voice strong enough to cut through the oppressive gloom. "Hold on, Aisling." Tyr tightened his grip as the ground rumbled again, a chilling growl reverberating from the depths of the chasm. He could feel the shadows clawing at them, seeking to break their bond, to sever the connection. But something deep within Tyr surged, a memory, a voice from the past. His grandmother's tales whispered in his ear. "Love binds us, Tyr. It holds us up when all else falls." He repeated the words, shouting them out like a spell. "Love binds us. Love holds us." With every syllable, the shadows flinched. He could feel it, a crack forming in the darkness, as if the very essence of their unity was a light piercing through the suffocating blackness. The villagers surged forward, drawn into a circle of connection, chanting fervently. "Love binds us. Love holds us." Each repetition grew in strength, rallying them closer, weaving a cord of defiance against the encroaching evil. Then, amidst the chaos, Maren stepped into the center, eyes locked fiercely on the abyss. "We will not be claimed by your darkness." The spirit hissed, an angry wind swirling around her. But her resolve did not waver. In an unexpected turn, the earth began to respond, radiant light spilling from cracks in the ground, illuminating faces twisted in horror yet driven by an unbreakable bond. Each wave of light that erupted pushed back the shadows, forcing them to shrink, revealing the twisted forms that had once tormented the villagers. The spirit howled in outrage, its tendrils writhing like serpents in pain. Tyr could see its true shape now, a monstrous, tortured thing, embodying their collective fears. He felt a pulse through the air. It was fear, yes, but it also carried the scent of something more, the promise of freedom. "Together!" Tyr shouted again, his voice melding with the cries of rallying villagers. "We choose to fight, we choose to live. Not for ourselves alone, but for each other." As if in response, the very fabric of the shadows splintered, fragments of the darkness scattering like leaves in a storm. But the spirit was fierce, thrashing wildly as it fought against their collective will. Yet in that moment of unity, as their hearts beat as one, Tyr realized he could feel the fear of the villagers entwining with his own. Could that fear transform into something more? A singular thought screamed through him. Hope. Hope binds us. He roared, letting the new mantra take root. Hope holds us. Surging with energy, the villagers echoed his words, louder than before. The spirit recoiled, visibly weakened, losing ground as their voices crescendoed. But their triumph would not come without cost. The fissure widened beneath them, threatening to swallow them whole. Tyr's grip on Aisling faltered for just a heartbeat, and he felt her slip just a bit. "Keep going!" Aisling cried, her voice rising above the clamor. "We cannot break this bond. With every ounce of strength, she pulled him back, anchoring their hearts together, but then it happened, a final surge of darkness, a scream of fury rattling their bones as the shadows lashed out, determined to drag them into eternal night. What darkness might still await them? Would their hopes be enough to overcome this terrifying tide, or would the pit of despair claim them at last? The truth lingered just beyond their reach, and with each heartbeat, the dance between light and shadow grew ever more precarious. The battle raged through the night. Tyr could feel his strength waning, fear and defiance intertwining within him like a storm ready to break. Every gasp, every chant echoed in his heart, binding him tighter to the villagers around him. The spirit writhed in pain, the malignant shadows clawing at the edges of their unity, but their bond held strong. Then, an idea ignited within him like a flame drawing breath. "We need to remember what we're fighting for," Tyr shouted, emboldened by the courage of those around him. "We fight for our families, our friends. For those whose laughter once filled this village, for the moments we treasure." Each word poured from him, vivid memories surfacing, sharing meals on summer evenings, the sound of laughter echoing through the fjords, the warmth of companionship around their fires. Marin's determined gaze locked onto Tyr's as he spoke. "Yes," she cried. "For every life lost, we remember our love, our joy." And with that, the villagers began to share their stories, each memory serving like a hammer, shattering the darkness that sought to engulf them. "Livia, my daughter, loved to dance in the rain," a villager exclaimed, his voice shaking but rising in power. "I remember old Tom telling tales by the fire." Another added, sparks of remembrance lacing his tone. Swells of voices rose, their stories intertwining and flooding the night air with warmth, a rising tide against the shadows. The spirits, too, began to shudder, flickers of recognition illuminating their hollow eyes. Irik's form jerked like a candle struggling against the wind, his voice a whisper amidst the growing chorus. "Remember us well." "No," shouted the dark spirit, rage twisting its features into grotesque shapes. "You think mere words and memories can bind us? You think these trite illusions can hold back our hunger?" But Tyr felt a power surging within their collective voice. "Yes. More than words. Love is our offering. Our shared lives and laughter. We are one in this fight." He thrust his hand forward, feeling the warmth of Aisling's hand gripping his tightly. The villagers felt that warmth spreading through them, a warmth more potent than fear, more unbreakable than grief. "We choose life," Aisling shouted, her voice ringing with clarity, and then, like a gust of wind breaking the silence, a sudden silence blanketed the chaos. The spirits faltered, caught off guard as they examined the conviction lighting up each villager's face like a beacon against the night. Tyr could feel the fear uncoiling, an atmosphere of camaraderie blooming. "The darkness cannot win. We are stronger together than any shadows can tear apart," Tyr declared. And in one powerful breath, their voices unified as one. "Hope binds us. Love holds us," they sang, a fierce battle hymn echoing through the fjords, rallying the spirits of their lost, filling the air with luminous strength. The shadows recoiled, swirling desperately as the light surged against them. Eirik floated closer to Tyr, his spirit transforming, flickers of love igniting in his eyes. "We remember you too," came his voice, echoing through the dark, no longer a whisper of despair but a roar of gratitude. I end their remembrance. The darkness began to dissolve, whirling around in an anguished scream. With each heartbeat and every shared memory, the villagers pushed back, their unified strength overwhelming the spirit that threatened to tear them apart. "This is our village. This is our home," Tyr bellowed, every syllable quaking with raw energy, and just like that, the tide altered. The darkness screeched one last time, its forms swirling fiercely before becoming ashes lost to the wind. The air settled, the storm fading, leaving the villagers together, panting, voices trembling with remnants of fear, but so much lighter. They clung to one another, faces wet with tears both of sorrow and relief. As dawn broke over the horizon, streaks of sunlight poured into the clearing, illuminating the village like a sacred promise. Marin's staff clattered to the ground. She caught Tyr's gaze, and they nodded, hearts lighter than they had ever felt amidst such darkness. "We made it," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Together, Tyr agreed, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "We must honor those who joined us tonight. Their spirits will guide us as long as we remember." And they would remember. Every name, every cherished moment, would be revered in their village, their fragile legacy of love and light. The villagers scattered under the warming sun, laughter returning like birds coming home, hearts resolute. The dark shadows had retreated, yes, but deep. So long as they kept their connection alive, their spirits would never be truly lost. As they began rebuilding, taking cautious steps back to their lives, voices intermixed in shared stories reiterated the strength forged that night, a tapestry of hope and resilience carved into the very fabric of their souls. It was over. But the journey was just beginning, so, what will you do? Will you carry love and unity forward, or let fears linger in the shadows? The moment is now. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will touch your heart, feed your spirit, and guide your path. Smash that like button now to help spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.